Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, August 10th, 2022 Human Services Committee meeting. Being 9:01, we'll call the meeting to order. Karen, if you can call roll.
Lewis,
Lewis here.
Allen, Bates, Davis,
Davis here.
Iqbal,
Iqbal present.
Kenyon,
Kenyon present in the room.
Pirog, Shepro. Sturgis,
Surges here.
you have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
In the room.
Could I get you know what, if I can, I would, boy, this mic is really hot today, Brian Blair. I would like to modify our agenda to pull item 8. Is it 8D? What is Vince here for?
7B.
7B. I have that highlighted wrong. Mike, could you motion, could we modify the agenda to
I
move?
move that we modify the agenda, item 7B.
Anita
Lewis
seconds.
will second in person next to
Okay.
Mike,
In person.
sitting next to Mike.
Can we just say aye? Is that okay? All opposed? Okay. Vince, let's pull you up and get you back to your office so. we can-
All right.
Morning. Oh, hello, can everyone hear me? Okay. Yeah, so I'm here on the discussion regarding the ethics ordinance. My understanding from prior coming to this committee is that we were going to do this kind of in sections or piecemeal. We did tackle the lobby registration portion of that. The next item, the state attorney's office is just looking for direction on what portion the committee might want to tackle next. I do note that there are some sections that will require more of a deeper dive or discussion. And then there's other sections that are more low-hanging fruit. Our office has recommended that an ethics commission be created because there's portions of the ordinance as it relates to the state attorney's office where there's conflicts of interest. So we were trying to resolve those issues. That is, I know the creation of an ethics commission will probably take some discussion by this committee. Some of the lower hanging fruit that we could get working on and get something done probably faster is the State Officials and Employee Ethics Act had created a couple newer sections in the last few years regarding ownership interests in gambling and cannabis. As you know, that growing here in the state of Illinois, and they've created some sections as it relates to ethics for that. So however this committee, and there's other sections too, but however this committee wants us to go, we can tackle the next section and present a draft for that section.
Jamie, if I guess from my perspective, if there was a list of everything that the ordinance wants to tackle, everything, if we had a punch list, a task list, items, and then Vince, if you could tell us, these are the ones that we can handle within committee.
Yes.
These are the ones that have a conflict that we should maybe put together a different group to discuss. I would require that guidance.
Would you tell her that
I would require that guidance from you. Is that okay?
I think it's up to this committee which things you want to tackle and which things you don't. So I don't
But
know that
without
we
having a
can.
list, I'm not sure how we can prioritize that. You just put together a list out of that ethics ordinance and say, these are the 25 items or the 7 items. And then we can verbally discuss what we consider to be low hanging fruit and what Vince feels are a little bit more.
I'm happy to put together a list. I don't have a list, created here for this committee today.
What was your goal walking out of here today?
Just some direction on how this committee, what they want us to do next in relates, because I know we provided a draft of, it was a while ago, so we would have to update and see if there's been any more changes. And then after that draft was provided, it was our understanding that it was going to be tackled piece by piece. Lobby registration was picked first, and I didn't know what portion this committee wanted us to tackle next. I can certainly put together a list if that's what the committee wants.
I think we should just have that overarching list so we know what we're trying to tackle. Mo, this was originally your spearhead. Do you have any input on this or do you have any comments at all?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you. Let me ask Mr. Coyle, how many pieces do you think we need to break it into? We already are done with the lobbying. That's done. Then definitely there will be at least two. One is the Ethics Commission, and the other portion are the non-commission areas. So at least two, but do you think there will be 3, 4?
It's hard for me to put a number on it, because there are different parts that we touched on the draft minimally, so
Vince,
but-
would you say that you're in agreement that we'll be dealing with commission items and non-commission items, as Mo suggested? Can we fundamentally as a committee say, sure, we're gonna break those two categories?
Sure. Yeah, I can try to break it up however you want. I know that there was to Mr. Iqbal's question, there was another portion relating to sexual harassment and elected officials that I believe needs to be addressed at some point. And it will be up to this committee to determine whether that should actually go into the ethics ordinance itself or whether it should be on its own standing I guess ordinance or put it into another place. So there's a lot of different parts, and I can certainly try to break that down in a list for you.
Mo, does that answer your question? I kind of sidestepped it.
Yeah, it does. It does answer the question. The only thing is we have only a few months left in this commission and this committee. So if we can wrap it up, that would be great. So let's say we have only 4, not more than 4 pieces to consider. Would that be good?
And Mo, we'd be happy to have a special committee meeting if you felt that was important.
Yeah.
Davis with comment.
I have Anita before you, Mark.
Okay.
Ready?
Yes,
So,
pull your mic down.
sorry. We started this because of the lobbying. And just as Mo said, and I think we can resolve that one and get that one going.
That was
And then-
completed.
Yes, and then I think we need to get input from Madam Chair on forming an ethics committee. So I think what we have been tasked with is done. And then I think we need to talk about an ethics committee, which I think is probably the right way for this county to go. So I don't think there's any other low hanging fruit that shouldn't go through that committee.
Mark, did you have a comment?
Well, Anita's got good points and credit to Mo for spearheading a lot of the effort. And I appreciate his comments about the time that's left for the board as it exists in its current, rendition. But, this entire effort goes back many years. I have, personal attachment to it. So I know that it's been, something that we've addressed and tried to readdress many times. This goes beyond, the calendar year and who's sitting in the seats. I think Vince, sorry, pal, but is in a position to provide a list that from his perspective or from the state's attorney's office perspective are items that need to be addressed. And that's where we
I'm
started.
sorry, Mark, did you say the state's attorney is or is not?
It is.
Okay,
A lot of this effort and many of the complaints over the years have been, well, do you have the authority? Does this have any teeth? That kind of thing. Vince is now as familiar with this document as anybody we have. And for me, the next step would be to have a list, from Vince that says, here are the things that I've seen in my efforts so far that I believe have something about them that need to be addressed. And maybe even a second step that says, and of these, I believe that this portion would fall under a newly formed commission And these could be addressed, in another way. Then we have a place to start. And yes, I think the effort will probably go beyond the next election, but that's how things work. We do the best work we can without rushing it. And if we have to hand it over to the next group, that's, so be it.
Madam Chair, do you have any comments? And if you're off guard, we can.
No, I have no comment on this. It's a labor, and it's highly political, on many levels, and it takes time. And I do agree that it needs to get done eventually. So it's, government moves very slowly, and sometimes it's frustrating and sometimes it's rewarding. So at this point, I think everyone is just doing the best job they can. I do have a question though related to this. We just passed a resolution regarding family, notice of family. If anybody is working in Kane County who is a member of your family, and to let people know about that. Does that apply to board members as well? Or are we exempt?
Kane County personnel policy should apply to county board members as well as county board employees.
And thank you for that clarification. Does that include if an employee works for an elected official?
It does not.
Okay.
We don't have the authority to apply policy to the elected official offices. They establish their own policy. So that does not. So I believe that policy we put through does directly address that this policy applies to the employees under the jurisdiction of the Kane County Board.
So what could potentially happen is that a married couple or a family unit, one could be working for the state's attorney or the sheriff, and impacting potential decision-making process that would happen here at the board because of family influence. I'm not saying that it has, but that could potentially be potential without us having the board having any notice that that individual is employed with that elected official. I'm not saying that there should be any disregard for that freedom to be able to hire and to work for, your skill level and where you'd like to work. And government services is a wonderful thing to be able to work through and work in. But it would be wonderful if just the board is notified, just so that we're simply aware. And that would be with those policies, that would be a recommendation that I would just like to share, because I think that's very important for our ethics code, just so that we know.
Jamie.
Yeah, let's do
could I
a
ask-
follow-up.
I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
Well, Madam Chair has hit on exactly on the biggest and longest lingering, I guess, complaint that we've had regarding the ethics ordinance. Who can it be applied to? And you have constitutional offices, you have internal control statute, and, it's been pointed out to us, and I think Vince can probably confirm this or support it, that we don't have the authority in some cases. And my answer now is the same that I've, offered for many years, which is you find language that says that, that this is what we present for our employees, and this is what we recommend for all those who, work with us. And if one of these officials who don't have to toe that line want to explain to the world why they shouldn't, so be it. Again, let them explain that. We're offering a standard that we think is appropriate. And excuse me, if through their official status they don't have to abide by that, I think it's incumbent on them then to explain why they are not going to or shouldn't. It's all we can do.
Mark, I would go as far as to say that stumbling block is taking me personally a while to become comfortable with understanding the role of the countywide offices versus the county departments and the notion of budget versus internal control. And I have, 4 years into this, I still don't know that I'm wholly comfortable understanding the guidelines and the governance between both. But in this particular case, and Madam Chair does have one more comment. In this particular case, if this is something that internally, Jamie, you might be able to shape before we next meet. And Vince, what I'm hearing loud and clear is we don't have a list to follow. We should probably break this ordinance down to the remaining items. Those items might not need attention. They may be low-hanging fruit, but if we could knock those off before we go to a commission, that would be great. And this way the commission can stay focused on those heavy lifting items, I think would be appropriate, or at least that's what I'm hearing. Madam Chair?
And I have one more comment with this that does have concern to me as we stumble through next year's budget and going forward into future years' budgets. Since the board has decided that they would like to continue the policy of having board members have supervisory capacity over the committees. And those committees will then ultimately decide what the budget is for those either elected departments or governmental departments, which is fine. But if you're related to somebody you're making financial decisions on, that may have an impact upon your decision-making, whether you're going to increase compensation for that department or make a judicial edits to their budget or cuts to that budget, when you know it may have direct impact upon a family member. So those are, as you drill down to this, it becomes complicated.
Vince is a pretty smart guy. I don't think that he's here because this is a easy issue.
No, not at all, not at
in
all.
any
So
means.
I
And so
just-
we appreciate the guidance on that. And Madam Chair, have there been, I'm not aware of what you're speaking. So have there been grievances that have been filed that
no,
we're
no,
trying to
no,
address?
this is all hypothetical. I was
Okay.
made aware of a personal relationship with one of our board members who is currently with the state's attorney. And I'm not going to say what board member it is, but took me by surprise. And it would have been nice if it was disclosed to me and to the board, just collegially letting us know, since we are so concerned with family relationships, to make sure that there's no interference with our due diligence. That's all.
I think thank you so very much for bringing that up. While I have the ability to thank you for saying it, I don't have a response or an answer other than to say, I think we should look into that. And I believe at the staff level is the appropriate way to handle that. But Vince, what I have heard consensus wise is break this elephant apart to bite-sized pieces for us, and we'll help steer what is easy to knock off and is more housekeeping versus those items that need much more attention and should probably go to a commission. But let's figure out what those are and see if the commission is needed. If it is, by all means, let's go there. So
Understood.
is that fair?
Yes.
Do you have the answers you're looking for?
I have the direction. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mike, thank you for motioning to get Vince back to his office. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you, Vince.
Moving back to our agenda, item 2, approval of minutes for July 13th, 2022.
I'll make a motion, we approve them.
Kenyon motions,
Do a second.
Lewis seconds.
Allen, Bates, Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sturgis.
Surges, yes.
Pass.
Public comment. I see nobody in the room. Well, wait, if I look over the chair, I see Penny. Sorry. Anybody online, Blair? Thank you. Monthly financial reports, I believe, were attached and are on file. Does anybody have any questions on those? Thank you. Jamie, Department of Human Resource.
We have a pretty full agenda. All the reports were attached, the monthly Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice, the BCBS MERP numbers, the Assured Partners report, and the staff changes and the workers' comp reports. Everything was within tolerance. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary among these reports. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay. Monthly training report, those are sexual harassment training numbers. We are moving right along with that. We've got about 80% taken care of, and we are in August reaching out to directors to make sure that their employees have that finished. So we're starting to make contact with those who have not completed it yet.
Perfect. Thank you. Old business resolution adopting temporary and seasonal workers policy to personnel policy handbook. Mike, could you motion that for discussion?
I would like to.
I'll second it.
Anita seconds. Discussion, Jamie, if you could.
We did talk about this. This is another item that came as a recommendation from the auditor's office to update some of our policies. Currently, we do not have any policy defining a temporary versus seasonal worker. What we tried to highlight in this, and it is a new policy since we did not have one before, specifically the definitions of seasonal and temporary employees, as well as including a definition of an independent contractor, which is not an employee of the county, but this is a matter that has brought up some confusion among different people not quite understanding these roles. So this is a way for us to define these roles. The state's attorney has vetted this policy and looked through it and also made sure that it's consistent with all the legal definitions. A specific thing that we're addressing here is the IMRF limit of 600 hours in any 12-month period. These positions, seasonal and temporary positions, would not be IMRF positions. That's why we have that 600-hour limit. Our IMRF participation requirement is anyone working more than 600 hours is required by IMRF to participate. So this helps alleviate any missing of people that work 600 hours or more in a 12-month period.
Jamie, could I ask you, I've read the definitions. Can you give an example of what you might consider a seasonal, temporary, independent contractor? And if I may be so bold, what's the difference between an independent contractor and a contract employee? Can you give us some examples of what we're talking about?
Absolutely. A temporary employee, a good example would be you have an administrative assistant that goes out on maternity leave and they're going to be gone for 3 months. In that case, you may hire an employee, a direct hire employee to work for that time period. That's for a limited purpose and is for a limited time period. We do not have to apply them benefits and things like that, even if they work 40 hours a week or 35 hours a week during that time period, because they meet the definition of a temporary employee.
So is that synonymous with the term contract employee?
No, that would
Okay.
be an employee who's hired. They receive a W-2 from the county. They are an employee of the county, bound by all of the county policies and procedures that we have in place for any employee we hire. It's just an understanding that they will only work for a limited time period or for a limited purpose.
Can a contract employee on a limited purpose file for unemployment afterwards?
A temporary employee or a contractor?
Contract employee.
A contract employee, which we haven't talked about yet, would be someone who does.
Is that coming up
That's coming up later. That's different. A temporary
like
employee
later today?
later in this policy, it's underneath
Okay,
temporary.
then I will just follow your lead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so a seasonal employee differs in that, a good example would be what we call our snowbirds. They are the people that Department of Transportation hires every year to plow our streets in the winter months. They are only employed during the winter months for that purpose of plowing. So we often bring the same people back year after year and they are employees during that time period. Again, we have that 600-hour limit to make sure that we do not have people exceeding the IMRF requirement.
And Michelle, I see you. We'll get right there. On these seasonal and temporary employees, are these typically hired directly from the county? Do we use an outside service? Does it matter?
Those are, this refers to direct hire employees. So they are actual employees of the county. They are not through an agency. They are actual employees of the county.
I see temporary employee and I think temp service.
Right. Those people are not employees. Those would be employees brought in through a contract service. So they are not employees of the county. They are employees of their temporary service.
Got it.
And we are contracting with a temporary service for that service to be taken care of. So those people are not employees. We do not send them a W-2. So they're not actually an employee of the county.
Okay. Michelle? Michelle, are you with us? Blair, did we just lose her?
No, I'm here. I'm
Oh, there we
here.
go.
Sorry about that. That was my error. Sorry for butting into your meeting here, but quick question for Jamie. I just want to make sure I was reading through this. This is in no conflict with any of our CVAs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because I know that it's been mentioned, but sometimes I just want to make sure there was no conflict whatsoever in that. Thanks very much for
This
answering.
was
it.
vetted by the state's attorney's office, so.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
The next definition on here is an independent contractor. So those would be situations where we have a contract with a specific person or company for services. Those people, again, are not employees of the county. They are employees of the contractor, or the contractor is self-employed. We do not provide any benefits to that person. Their wage and services are under the terms of their contract. By definition, an independent contractor has independent control of how they complete the job. What they are contracted to do is complete a job, and the county does not direct how they go about completing that job. It's a specific part of that definition. The final definition on the list is a temporary agency worker, which is what you were referring to when we have someone who works through a temporary agency. They are assigned to work at a county for a limited purpose or duration. Again, we still have that 600-hour in any 12-month period requirement. IMRF does not want people being assigned as temporary workers to avoid IMRF participation. So that's still another important thing. If we do need more than 600 hours from an employee, then it's probable that we should hire them as a regular county employee rather than utilizing a temporary agency.
Jamie, in daily practice, is that 600 hours a hard and fast line?
Absolutely. With IMRF, it
Okay.
absolutely is. Yes.
So if you had somebody who just needed to finish their week and that week put them at 620 hours.
You'd have to go back and IMRF all 620
Okay.
hours.
So really that becomes critical to.
It
watch
is
this.
critical. Yes.
Okay. And we have checks and balances in place. on
We
that.
do. Yeah. Payroll does track that. And if they hit that 600-hour, payroll does go back and make those corrections.
Perfect. Any questions on this resolution? I think we're prepared to go ahead and take a vote to move this along.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
pass.
New business. Resolution canceling the 2022 annual employee wellness biometric screening. Mr. Kenyon, could we get a motion on that?
Yes.
Anita, second.
Yes.
Discussion, Jamie.
So there's a number of things going on here. First, large in-person events really are just no longer in the best interests of the public. They've become, more than just unpopular. They're not really the healthiest thing to be doing. The major parts of the pandemic, we may be reopened, but COVID-19 isn't gone. It is still very contagious and very prevalent. And getting everybody together in a small area for a screening event really is not in the best interests of our employees right now. going forward, I don't see that that's going to change anytime soon. So we really, within human resources and in speaking with our broker, are looking at restructuring our wellness screening program to permanently eliminate the in-person screening so that by next year we can hopefully reinstate the wellness program in a similar form, but in a manner that does not use these in-person screening events. So we're looking at a number of options that we haven't fully vetted any of those options yet. But we really at this time think we need to suspend the in-person screening event. As a result, all employees would be deemed to have participated in wellness so that everybody gets that wellness rate for 2023. And then we, like I said, we do anticipate resuming in 2024, but presenting a restructured wellness plan in the meantime.
Jamie, I know there's that, I mean, this is one of those that seems like such a no nonsense, easy to, present. But I know that this has been the thrust of many conversations over the past several years. And at least to me, I look forward to seeing what technology brings to us in 2024 and how we might make this something that's truly advantageous for both our staff as well as the county. So
We are looking at a number
Thank
of
you. Yeah, thank you for
options and
everything
we've
you've done
got
on this.
we've got some good ideas that I think will be of huge benefit. And I think our employees will really appreciate it. I think they'll really like the new methods. And I think it'll also be great for the county.
fabulous. Any discussion on this, Anita?
So I have no problem approving this resolution and canceling it for obvious reasons. But I am a huge proponent of wellness programs. I know the company I used to work at, it was a big deal when we had our yearly biometric screening because everybody's comparing, oh, what's your health age? Oh, I'm 64, but my health age is 69. It was that snapshot where and then we started like, oh, we better start walking at lunch. We better start doing this. So I think that peer pressure that these things, bring about and just, talking about it, I think it's huge. And I think in order for us to make sure we get the best rates on our insurance, and for many reasons, wellness is so critical. So I hate the fact that we're waiting to 2024 to actually, promote things. So if there's things we could do along the way with what we already have in place, I would appreciate that.
We do have a number of options that we're looking at too, that we would be able to start sooner. That include things like wellness programming that people can opt into, such as diabetes prevention, weight control programming, some kind of competition such as Walker Tracker, if you've ever heard of Walker Tracker. So we're looking at a lot of those with our broker. So we actually tend to step up the wellness program in this process rather than step it back, but we need the time to work with it as we are looking at establishing rates for next year right now.
Any program that includes Carl Shadle in a number of steps, I want to be on that team. Just saying. Mike,
What does the insurance companies think of? Because I see stuff that goes on, Taste of Chicago.
Mhm.
Did you see any face masks?
Mm.
No. The Rolling Stones just had their 60th anniversary concert in Milan. You should have seen the people,
You a Stones fan?
of course. But they had
So?
the concert in Milan and it was like 100,000 people and they don't get sick. So I don't worry about that
You
stuff.
got to come to public health for that one.
Yes.
Okay.
And also they may get sick. We don't necessarily know about it if they do, but I think the thought being that that's a choice. And when we make an event mandatory, there are people that don't feel that way and do avoid those events. So this being mandatory or the cost of an extra $600 per adult a month makes this really something
But
they
isn't
have
it
to
a
do.
choice on our part? We don't have to participate.
Right, but it costs $600 a year for you if you don't, $50 a month, $600 a year.
Choice.
So it is a choice, but it's not really a choice because there is a penalty for not doing it.
I just don't worry about him. Look at what all of us here were so close.
No hand holding in the gallery.
Mr. Chairman.
Michelle? Hang on, Mo, hang on one second. Michelle, your hands up.
Thank you. Hey, I just had my finger pricked, I don't know, last week or the week before. And when I got there, I had mentioned I had a complete panel done. And she said that I could have just brought in that data from my primary doctor, that I didn't even need to come in for that. So just throwing that out there. I'm sure you're probably already aware of that, but that would have been extremely helpful.
Thank you. Mo, great use of the hands up on the video. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, you reminded me. Just a short question. Does it have any impact on the union contract?
Since we are giving everyone the benefit of the wellness program, it does not. I did have a conversation with our labor attorney as well as the state's attorney to make sure that there was no union impact to doing this. And since we are deeming everyone to have participated and giving everyone the benefit, then it's not a problem.
Okay.
If Mo, if I might add to that, and maybe this is inappropriate, but we did have a grievance on this a few years back that helped us come to the point where we're at today. And then we most recently had a small grievance from the sheriff's office that was only on a very select group of people that we were able to identify that, Jamie, maybe that was a computer glitch or something. How did we overlook those? Ron had called on that, asking for further detail. Jamie and I, we were able to get him that information within 24 hours, and he was more than satisfied with what we did. So I don't know if that's what you're leaning toward or if that was just a generic question, but Jamie, am I even remotely accurate on that?
Yeah, it was the original grievance was related to employees that were a single adult family. That the family wellness charge was $100, but they were only able to avoid 50 of it because they only had a single adult.
Yeah.
So that grievance was solely regarding single parent families. We have.
That was
since-
methodology. It's just,
was
it's just the way our
calculation methodology.
computation was put together.
Correct.
Was
We-
flawed and we fixed it.
And we fixed it, correct.
So
Back-to-back meetings, so.
any other questions on this or can we call the vote?
Call the vote, please.
Karen?
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes,
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. Item 8B, authorizing the county contract with Humana Inc. to provide the 2023 healthcare continuation coverage for Medicare eligible retired and disabled employees and surviving spouses. Anita, motions?
Yep.
Mike
I-
seconds,
I second that.
open for discussion. Seeing none, let's call the vote.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes,
Lewis,
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. 8C resolution approving the 2023 mental health and dental contributions. Mark, do I hear a motion?
I'll motion.
Anita motions,
Wake up, Mark.
Kenyon seconds.
yes.
Open
I'll
for
third.
dis-
Sorry. Missed the mute button.
Jamie, if you could explain this just a bit.
I did pass this out as well as you should have received it in an email because it wasn't attached. We were just fine tuning these rates last night. So I apologize for that. We have met with the broker. We've gotten our quote from Blue Cross for our rates for next year. And a rate sheet was sent to you and is attached to the version I passed out and emailed, and I believe it's available on the website as well. We're looking at a 13% increase in the HMO rate and a just above 3.5% raise in the PPO rates. In this process, finance did all the calculations, and regarding our reserves, we have reserve, the target reserve balance, if you remember, was listed as $9 million. After conversations with our broker and finance, that was calculated based on the fact that when we were with IPBC, we had to pay our premiums in advance. So we needed to hold more money in the calculation using the most conservative calculation method of a target reserve. We get about 4.5 million. So that was checked and double checked and triple checked. At the end of fiscal year 22, we expect it to be on its own at about 4.6 million based on current projections. So that leaves us only just above our target. So the rates that we put in, the HMO would have been 13.9%, but we are actually budgeting to take $84,525 out of reserves to have it at that $4.5 million target. And so that has lowered the HMO rate to 13% from 13.9.
So if I could lead the discussion on this, when I was placed as chair of this committee 3.5 years ago, the single task regarding health insurance quickly became the question of remaining with the cooperative IPBC or pulling. And after 12 months of deliberation, we made the choice to pull from IPBC and self-manage. Part of that choice was technologies that became available through brokers. Part of that was we felt we were the biggest, one of the larger fish in the pond, and maybe that was working against us. But either way, when we pulled, we set an arbitrary at that time goal of $9 million in reserve. We really didn't have math behind that. We really just, if you're going to pull and do something new, we wanted to be as ultra conservative as we possibly could. And between Mr. Onsick and Mike Baker and myself and the Human Services Director, we thought 9 million was an attainable goal. It seems as though that goal is too lofty to the point where it's working to our detriment. And if I can characterize this correctly, and Jamie, you have a big 2x4 to hit me with if I go astray on this, but it's very difficult to go to your union partners and say, in your collective bargaining agreements, these are the rates we're going to charge when we're holding too much money in reserve, and we could use some of that money to buy down the rates. And I think that was the argument, and the argument was sound in that we over projected conservatively, and we should make that adjustment now. And while I am not comfortable with the 4.5 million as being the reserve amount, I'm being told by the professionals that they are. Am I fundamentally accurate on that?
Yes. I don't know if Mike Baker was able to join. He is. I see Mike Baker's available online if you had more questions about that. He, like I said, there's a couple of common methods for determining what is the correct reserve, and we use the most conservative of them. So I think that is, it's a good target amount. He may have more information on that.
Mike, are you online with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Did you hear my soliloquy?
I did.
Was
Well
I fundamentally sound?
You were fundamentally sound. Yes.
Okay. Anything you want to add? Are we reestablishing the goal as half from 9 million to 4.5 million? And are you comfortable with that? And if so, why do you think the change is necessary?
So we have a incurred but not reported reserve number that we calculate for the county, and it's a very conservative formula that I walked through with Joe and Jamie. And so our calculation for the end of 2023, which has 25% margin in it, is $3 million. And so having a target of 4.5 million is a good target. You could grow it, to a range between 3 million would be your floor, and on the high side would be 6 million. So we as a team split the difference and said 4.5. We're very comfortable with that number.
And Mr. Onsick agreed with you?
Yes.
And Jamie agreed with you.
Yes.
Correct.
With that, I'll open up the discussion. Any questions? Corinne?
So I'm catching up with this. So we have a floor of reserve funds since we're self-employed from anywhere 3 million to potentially 6 million. Right now, we're targeting $4.5 million in reserves. We're passing on additional costs to our employees at an additional 13% increase in their healthcare costs, where we're sitting on $4.5 million. Is that correct? Because we're self-insured.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes,
We're required
absolutely.
to
And
hold
what,
some.
and the cost per employee is going to be, Jamie, approximately average 120? What's it going to cost an employee for just just one person? And then what would a family cost?
An individual, the employee cost for the HMO Blue Advantage non-union plan is $116.70 for the employee rate. For the family rate of the same plan, that being our most cost-efficient plan, a family rate would be $358.43 a month.
So we're asking our employees to pay, if they have a family, let's say $360 additional a year.
That's total. I'm sorry, that's not additional, that's total.
That's
That's
total.
the total cost per year for the family.
And what are they
plan.
paying now?
You know what, I don't have that figure off the top of my head, what the current rate is, but
Whatever
it's a
13%
13%. So, if you looked at 15% as a conservative example, 35, up to 50, it'd be less than $50 a month
A
different.
month.
A month,
Mhm.
$50.
Which is a lot.
$50 a month.
It is.
So as we are being very conservative with our finances going next year, we are looking at and very sensitive to the rate of inflation and of course, the price of gasoline. We want to make sure that we are not impacting our employees with this additional rate increase because it's their take-home pay. And I think that that is something as we go forward with our budget adjustments, we need to include and keep that in the back of our mind, all of our board members, that we are asking our employees for a $600 additional increase for a family, for a family per year to pay for their health insurance. Now, I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it's a hard cost and $600 in my neck of the woods pays for a lot of groceries.
Madam Chair, if I could respond to two items on that. The first is in terms of budget sensitivity, rearranging or targeting the goal from 9 million to roughly half of 4.5 million is a huge adjustment.
I agree.
That's enormous, almost to the point where I'm not comfortable with it, but I'll flow with our professionals on this. And reducing it any less than that, these rates aren't arbitrary. These rates are based on our losses.
No, I agree. I
Okay,
agree.
not the marketplace, not the state of Illinois. They're based on our losses.
I agree.
And so any adjustments that we're having are appropriate to us. And while some can characterize this as we are increasing that rate, we didn't take the full increase because we bought some of that back by adjusting that. So I just want to make sure that that's not characterized as like a penalty.
No, no penalty in mind. What I'm just trying to make everybody aware is that we have to adjust our compensation for our employees next year so that they are not at a loss for money. So if we give a 2% raise or a 3% raise, whatever is appropriate, that we have to realize that the cost of healthcare has also gone up for them approximately $600 annually. And that is something that we have to be sensitive to because their take-home pay, if we don't adjust it, is $600 less. So that's all. That's all. It's just another way of thinking of what's going to be happening as we consider the grand budget.
Understood. And hopefully we've demonstrated our willingness here to do what we could for that.
So Are we saying that we actually have a pot of money sitting there?
Yep.
Yes.
We are. So.
And I'm suggesting it may not be a big enough pot and the professionals are
I'm not
saying we're okay
I'm
with that.
talking. You be quiet, I'm talking. So if we held rates to last year, because we are being sensitive to our employees, I mean, we sit here week after week and we talk about how, you know, we have the greatest employees and we know that we can't always compensate them to what they're actually worth. But to me, if we have a pot of money sitting there above and beyond what our experts are saying we need, we should hold the line on this as an incentive to our people, that we can say, hey, we understand how horrible things are. We understand our 9% inflation. So we're willing to take this risk and not increase your insurance this month or this year, I'm sorry. And then the other question I had is, we had talked, I think it was last month, about a high deductible option. Did we opt not to even look at that?
To answer your first question first, we are taking about $85,000 out of reserves to try to mitigate some of the increase
85 out of how much?
out of, well, because our target is 4.5 million. So we're taking that 85, which is the amount above 4.5 million, so that we will be at target. So any amount that we had over the target of 4.5 million, we are applying towards rates, which did reduce the rate from the increase from 13.9% down to 13.
We held it, what would happen if we froze it at
Let
last
me,
year's
let me ask a
rates?
question to that to maybe help answer it. And Mark, I do see you. Mike Baker, are you still online?
I am.
Mike, is there a requirement from, since we self-insure to a certain threshold and then Blue Cross picks up above that stopgap, is there a requirement by the medical community that we need to stay within before they get squirrely, or it affects our secondary rates with them?
There's a requirement by the state for, you have auditors that come in and audit your books. And so Joe Onzik has to show that you have a minimum amount in incurred but not reported. So our formula, that floor of $3 million, is what Joe needs to show to the auditors. And if you
Okay.
don't have it, you have to add money to that. So now you're not only adding money to the reserve, which is then going to be picked up by the county or a combination of county and employees. That is a double hit for current cost plus adding to the reserve.
So $1.5 million over the minimum as required by the state.
Correct. So that's where we came up. We feel that's enough cushion. If you didn't raise rates, our projection shows that you would have a $1.7 million deficit. So if you froze the PPO and the HMO rates at the current level, you would spend 1.7 million more than you take in to pay it. So now you'd be below the $3 million floor.
Okay. Anita, I think that was driving to the
That's
point.
exactly the answer.
That's what I thought you were
wanted.
going to.
Yes.
Mark, and we'll get to Anita's, I'm sorry, let's answer Anita's second part to her question, if we remember
You
what
can
it
go
was.
back to it after we get done with.
No,
this.
go ahead with that and then we'll go to Mark.
Regarding the HSA, we did look at that in detail, and I do think that there is some potential in that. As we've seen some pretty steep increases this year, we have, our team, at Assured Partners worked really hard to negotiate with Blue Cross. But in some market type comparisons, it's looking like other companies will provide a much more favorable, there's refunds for prescriptions and various types of programs that are available that Blue Cross is not fully giving us the benefit of in those negotiations. So what we're really looking at is we need to look at shopping our carrier for next year. And just for stability for the employees, I thought adding in a plan now when we might be shopping carriers next year and that plan might change, those offerings might change, that it would be better to continue a stability for this year, offering the exact same plans. And then next year we would look at the possibility of shopping those plans with other carriers to make sure we're getting the most cost-effective, best coverage for our employees.
Mr. Davist?
You guys have covered some of what I was, as I was listening. I guess one of the things I wanted to start with was, somewhere in there, we've characterized it, some of this is, why are we doing this to them? Or what, why would we do this to our employees? And I don't think that's a fair characterization. I think we're kind of all in this together, and it's driven by markets that are beyond our control. And then Mike spoke already, and the reserve has a purpose for more than just our ability to buy down a rate. And as we've now heard, there's a floor to that has to be maintained. And then I've just another thought, and maybe Mike can elaborate on this. I think we have to be somewhat careful when we, buy down or, work to change these rates, because if you put your labor management hat on for a moment, there's by contract, sort of a careful balance of percentage of who pays how much, what the employee pays and how much the county pays. And at some point, I think you get into an area where that would be used against us in negotiation. So just a thought.
Mark, thank you. Any other questions on this?
I had a question, but I don't want to cause any trouble.
No, ask it.
No, I don't.
You're going to stop causing trouble now?
I just wonder
Yeah,
how
I'm
we
looking.
stack up against other agencies like us. We doing better than them or worse? The insurance, Blue Cross negotiates the rate you pay when you go to a hospital. Without them or the others, the rate would be sky high. And even though Blue Cross is very expensive, without them, you might spend $20,000 for a day in the hospital and take 2 aspirins, and they still don't make any money.
Right.
Joe,
Mike,
I just wonder how we compare, and if you,
against other counties,
what,
against other counties?
municipals, I guess, too?
Mike, since you have a plethora of municipal clients, are we above, below, in line?
You are in line, but we will update a full benchmarking report that I'll review with Jamie and her team, and we can present that to your committee. And I will add about Blue Cross, they no longer call themselves a nonprofit. They call themselves a non-investor owned company. And just so the county, knows, we went to market on the prescription drug program and the stop loss program, and knowing that doesn't affect employees, and Blue Cross won't let you change those programs out to specialty vendors. If they did, we would save $1.5 million next year. So we did ask Blue Cross for rate relief. We asked for $950,000 of rate relief on their prescription drug program. They only gave us about $275,000. So we did save, from the initial offer from Blue Cross for next year, we did save the county almost $300,000. So that's where Jamie and Joe and I said we should do a full due diligence. That doesn't mean you're leaving Blue Cross, but that will put a little more pressure on their financial decision for the county for 2024. And we want to get early results to Jamie and the team by early April of 2023. So we have plenty of time to review and make a strategy of how we want to negotiate with Blue Cross.
And Mike and Jamie, if I can, I think the only, or the biggest, I shouldn't say only, the most concern that we've heard from employees is on that prescription component, unless I'm mistaken, but. All right, could we call the vote?
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. Item D, new position requests. I don't think this is a resolution. This is a conversation.
That's correct.
Is that correct? So if I can, the board may want to require job descriptions with salary requests and an org chart to be submitted for all new positions requested. This relates to the positions requested for the Safety Act, but could apply to new positions requested. Open for conversation.
Read it again or put it up, please.
Blair, can you put that up?
There's nothing attached to that.
Okay.
It was,
Yeah, it's just a conversation saying that I believe that we have, or we've been told that the Safety Act in and of itself may require enormous hires. I mean, upwards of 100 over a multi-year period.
116,
I'm sorry,
116.
116? 116 new hires is being recommended over that period. We're suggesting that maybe it's appropriate to put together a job description and a salary request that's coming in for each of those so that we understand where this is going and how we might help facilitate this.
How's that different than what we have today when we go to hire somebody new?
Jamie, I'll let you.
we don't currently have, as far as all of the positions requested in the Safety Act, we don't have job descriptions and titles for what those positions are. They just say we need, in some, it depends on the department. Like in some cases, for example, the judiciary may say we need 3 new bailiffs. We already know what bailiffs do. But I don't know, or I'm not aware of there being any listing of when they say we need X number of employees, what those employees will be doing, and what the salary request for each employee is. So it's just a matter of the board would like that detail before they approve a dollar figure for new employees to know what the intention is for those employees and what they would want to pay each of those employees based on that job description.
So really, it's what we always have requested on any other employees.
Typically, yes, if
Influx of a bunch of them that don't have it currently.
I'm not aware of there being job descriptions submitted to the board for positions that have been requested. If there has been, I haven't seen them. We receive them when a job is posted, but by then the budget's already been approved in some cases. So this is just a matter of if, and this is up to you guys, if you're interested in having job descriptions for those positions, either run through this committee or run through HR, whatever you think is best when they request a new position.
Vern, I see your hand up. Give me just 1 second. Anita, so there's been study after study after study, comparative, the collar counties, these counties, everything. One of the things that you learn from that is, wow, the buckets don't all line up. So you're comparing the person with this title in this area to a person with the same similar title in another area, but their duties are vastly different. And so as we begin moving forward saying, well, gosh, we need this bucket, that bucket, the other bucket, could we define what those are really doing so that when as we begin to run these comparative analysis, we understand exactly what they are, that we're apples to apples, oranges to oranges. And I believe that helps all of us make informed decisions. Is that the attempt where we're going here? Is that?
Yeah, it's your preference on what you want to do or where you want to provide diligence. Particularly when you're talking about elected offices, the board assigns a budget and then that elected office determines how much to pay an individual employee. So the only opportunity you have to do diligence over that is when you assign the budget for those employees.
Vern, did you have a hand up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been listening into the committee and I think we need to listen to every committee presentation that requires any actions regarding personnel. The actions of yesterday's board meeting make it quite evident that we are going to have budget constraints this year that are quite formidable. And we need to be extremely diligent and very cautious in moving ahead and in approving or hiring any kind of individual in the organization. So I would urge the acceptance of a procedure like this so that we can have some organized, I won't say control, but some organized effort associated with this.
Organized chaos.
Because personnel in the county is going to be an area that's going to be strained with our resources this year.
Vern, thank you. My question on this becomes, where do you go from an open discussion in committee to advancing this forward? Madam Chair, any thoughts on that?
Well, it's been my past experience that when you are looking to hire somebody, having a job description and a salary range to fit within your budget or requested new budget is just pro forma. It seems just what you need to do. It's not anything unique that is already not in place, whether or not it's for the government employees or the elected officials. It's just part of HR management. And how do you know what you need until you actually write it down and figure out what your budget requirements are for that? And allocation of space needs and work needs, computer needs, et
I
cetera.
guess my question was more procedural. So if this committee or Cliff as a chair is directing Jamie as a director, by what authority do we have, if any, to do this, or how do we make this happen?
Well, how does this board, you're going to be hearing Judicial Public Safety, I believe, is meeting tomorrow with the presentation of their budget. And they're going to be requesting X amount of money for so many employees that's going to be needed for next year. And I think next year's hire is altogether about 49. Well, who are these people? And if we don't have job descriptions for them, how can Jamie satisfy that oversight? Or how do we as a board satisfy our own unique oversight if we don't know if we're hiring 5 ASAs, 7 bailiffs? You know, what are these people doing? And who are they with the job description and salary range? Because we have to factor that in our budget allocation. And then we just mentioned health insurance, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Those
And
are
I made an
hard costs.
assumption, I made an assumption that that's like HR 101, that you have a job description and a salary
You would
range.
think, wouldn't you?
It's like HR for dummies. I'm sorry. No offense.
No, she's,
And we're working in that direction, absolutely. And I think as far as, you know, when this was brought up, I think current procedure. So we do not have any authority within county HR, for example, to require elected officials to provide us job descriptions. That's entirely up to them. The job descriptions for the purpose of like posting the job is submitted at the time the job is hired. What I think the suggestion here is the job description should be submitted at the time the budget is approved for the job. So rather than saying I need $1 million for 50 positions or $50,000 for one position, then in order to get that, they would need to submit that job description to the board so that you can see the job duties are commensurate with the salary that's being requested.
And I think we should move forward with this, however that works, but also with.
And
a
that's
little
my
bit of-
question. How does that work?
Okay, but with a little bit of caution that if, like, I'm going to say Ron Hain writes a position because he's always looking for new people, that you could look at it and, quickly get it to the board. So, I mean, because we're not going to have 8 or 10 months to keep talking about this over and over again before we make some decisions. So we're going to have to, I think it's important we do it, but we're going to have to do it in a expeditious manner. So however that works.
And I think what we're suggesting is at the time, if the budget cycle is now, and whether it be a county department
Mhm.
or a county-wide office, if you're asking for a new position to be funded by that budget, there is a requirement for some additional information.
Right.
Am I fundamentally correct on that? I don't think that's
Right, so as we go,
outside the bounds.
so as we go through these budget presentations this month, we will be telling people as we get further on here and we actually start, like these are presentations, so they don't need that tomorrow. But as
Fill
we
out
get-
your org chart.
you better fill out your org chart and you better have some,
backup.
yes, yeah, by the next meeting, because otherwise we can't approve anything.
Yes, and so again, I don't have any problem giving consensus on this if that's the committee's will. I just don't know that the committee has the ability to thrust that upon the system
Well, we have a finance chair here, perhaps. I had put Mr. Berman on the spot right here, but this makes,
And Mr. Teppi's online as well. So I mean,
Well,
this,
Tepe knows everything, so we're.
no,
okay.
come on, come on.
Mr. Berman, may I ask, how do you feel about that, having the backup?
I think it's fine.
Microphone.
I have no problem.
Mike, we can't hear you over here even.
Microphone.
Sorry.
I think what you're saying is fine. I have no problem with it. I think that's helpful.
Vern,
Yes, sir.
any comments on this at all?
Well, again, and I'm probably going to repeat myself. I'm most concerned not about any individual department or thing of that nature. I'm most concerned about the fact that decisions that were made yesterday are going to put strains on our budget. And we're going to have to be extremely diligent in every area. I would much see us be very cooperative with everybody. The key thing I brag about Kane County is Kane County works because we all talk to each other and we don't throw hand grenades over the wall at each individual department. And I think we're all in this together. Yesterday's results were disappointing personally, but I think very challenging for the board. So I don't know how we're going to handle the budget constraints without really seriously looking at limiting personnel hires in every area.
Mark and Mo, just let me ask before we, I'm trying to take shape to move this forward and I don't know where it's moving forward to. So
Davis here.
Davis, Mark,
I
go
guess
ahead.
my first thought is, I'm sorry, Jamie, because because this is a huge undertaking, and I don't think you even have all of the information that you really need to do it, other than in sort of broad strokes. But yes, it is information that will be vital, even if it's, and here's a little different perspective, even if it's giving us our ability to push back with Springfield and say, you guys have a long history of unfunded mandates. And this is the, grand poobah of them all. And throughout the state, counties with less to work with than us aren't going to be able to do it. So what happens then? I mean, there's a lot to unfold here still. But we do need to know as best we can, what the numbers look like and what we're talking about and be able to argue our side of it. So when Jamie is swamped with trying to do this, everybody be patient with her if it takes longer to get the other things you want.
Oh, Mark, appreciate it. Mo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I need more time to study this. I believe if we could discuss it next month, that would be great. If I have to vote yes or no today, so my vote would be negative.
Okay. Mike?
I don't want to make any trouble. We'll just go along.
I don't think we have till
Oh,
next
do you
month
want
to
to
talk about it.
adjourn?
No. My
No.
question is, do we have consensus or direction on this to steer this?
There's nothing here for a
That's
vote,
it.
just so you know, there's
Yeah.
no resolution on the table or anything like that. It was just looking if the committee is interested in pursuing something and direction and what they would like to do.
I think we have to. I think we'd be irresponsible if we didn't. I mean, so I don't know exactly how that goes, but I think we have to. And maybe,
I tend
why
to,
don't we move it to executive and let them tell everybody?
no, I
I
tend
mean,
to
it's got to
agree
go to
that,
some other,
that we do
we've
need,
got to move it forward. I don't think we don't have till next month to talk about it. Move it to finance?
It
let
requires
me-
some research, I think.
Sorry, Davis, again with a question for Jamie.
go ahead, Mark.
What kind
go ahead.
of what kind of time frame do you think you need, Jamie, to do this? Like I say, even in broad strokes. I mean, are you?
This was just a general question. I don't even think we have the direction on what you guys want that to look like entirely at this point. So I think it requires some research. So it was just a question that was brought to me that, feedback. It's really up to you guys what direction you want to take this. So I think I was just hoping for some direction on, do you want it pursued? And then I will have to do some research and get some information about some options of what this would look like, to really get an idea of what that would be. So we probably need some more research. Like I said, it was just added at the last minute in response to a question, that to get some direction from the board, if this is something you'd like to pursue.
When you
Well-
look at the screen, he can't see you.
I know.
Okay.
For me, I think that you've raised an excellent point, and like they say in scouting, be prepared, right? And I think it is worth having you do some of the preliminary, research into it. Again, broad strokes, just trying to sort of define what it looks like so that you can come back to us. And again, some of my perspective is having the knowledge, for what we're going to say no to. Yeah. And I think we do have to let you move forward a little bit just to help us define that, and what our position will be.
Mark, thank you, Madam Chair.
Again, I'm going to echo Mr. Kenyon's thoughts, not to complicate things, but also to support what Ms. Lewis has to say. We have judicial public safety, have intelligent people who are heading it, also who are working for it. This requirement of having a job description, when you are looking for a job and you are applying for a job, you have a job description, right? What does this job entail? How many hours am I going to be working? What's the compensation? What are my duties and responsibilities to make sure that I'm qualified for that position so I can apply for it? They can't possibly announce a position without having a job description to back it up. It's just, they go hand in hand. So this is not anything that we're asking that is onerous, difficult, unusual, punitive. It's, you want to hire so many people. What are they going to be doing? And could we please see that as an attachment to your budget? I mean, this is not unique, difficult, challenging. It's part of the work that you do when you are managing staff and you're asking for a new hire. You have to know what the responsibilities are.
Mo, if I can, do you serve on finance?
No,
Okay. What I would like to, I was hoping you did. What I would like to do is I'm hearing this in the affirmative, except for some concerns by Dr. Iqbal. I would enjoy empowering Jamie to say, let's begin shaping this, but take this to the finance committee for the next level as this truly begins impacting there when it comes to budgets. And if we could, and Dale, would you mind working hand in hand with us on that?
Not at all.
I just wanted to add that for what it's worth, I think the departments have already done this diligence, and it's just a matter of asking them to share it prior to approving the budget. I think to have asked for this, they have to have already done this. I'm just not aware that it has been shared yet. So I don't think we're asking, again, to Madam Chair's point, I don't think we're asking for anything onerous or anything that they don't have. I think to have done this planning, they have done this and they have already done all this work. So I don't know that it'll be any extra work on anyone else. They just need to share it.
I think so.
And if that's okay with Mr. Berman, let's take that direction and.
Yes, I think that's the best.
Yeah, we'll move
best
that
approach.
forward.
Okay.
I'm
Do
sure
you
it's
have what
there.
you need?
Yes.
Okay. Item 9, A, Human Services, the Human Resource Department budget.
Okay, so here we are. We have the first budget presentation other than Madam Chair's for her office. This is just our mission statement. So I think everybody's probably read that. I don't need to read the screen to you. This is the org chart. I do want to point out that the salaries listed on this are, they reflect no raises, no cost of living, no merit, no equity adjustments. This is current salary as it stands. That's kind of the direction that we were given for budget presentations. That was the direction given to all the county departments to just present as is so that the county can make the necessary decisions regarding any increases that may be coming. Even given the conversation we've had about health insurance rates going up, inflation, I think you need to consider at least a 3% increase in salaries simply to keep up with the increased costs so that your employees are not bringing home less than they were in the previous year. So that's just something to consider, that none of that is included in this presentation at this time. Another thing that I'd like to consider is currently you'll see I have a vacancy for the senior human resource generalist. That was a vacancy that was created when I moved into the director position. So it has been vacant for a considerable amount of time, and the remaining staff have been working hard to accommodate that vacancy. I've had the position posted since the end of January when I was appointed. And I've had an extremely difficult time finding a qualified candidate to do this position for $50,000. I have had people turn it down because of the salary when I have had qualified applicants. And I have had applicants that have absolutely no knowledge or experience in human resources applying for the position that I simply cannot bring into a position at this level. So what I'd like to request on top of when we get to the numbers is to raise that starting salary to $60,000. So that I am able to get a qualified person in that position because we do desperately need it.
Jamie, Vern, I see your hand up, but Jamie, if one comment I would like to make is under the human resources coordinator, that was a position that was originally a temp.
No,
That has grown, is that?
it
ma'am?
was not a temp. We have eliminated the temp position that used to be, so it used to be 5.5 was our head count, which was 5 full-time staff plus a temp. We have.
Let me rephrase that. That is specific individual started her journey with us
She
in a
was.
temp role.
She was the 0.5 for many years. And when our full-time human resources coordinator left, she moved into that full-time role. We did eliminate the temp. We've made a number of process improvements, one of the big ones being SmartBin to handle open enrollment and things like that. And through those process improvements, we were able to eliminate that half head count, which I took out of the budget last year, and it remains out of the budget. And I don't believe we will need it, given the process improvements, unless we add more services to human resources. But I believe that these 5 positions can effectively handle the.
Huge success in that endeavor, because
Mhm.
sometimes you bring on temps and it doesn't work out, and look at where we are just several years later, and the individual just does a great job for us. So.
Yes, this particular individual worked as a temp in a number of departments throughout the county,
Oh, really?
including
I didn't
human
know that.
resources, prior to coming to human resources. And she's fantastic. There is not a slip of paper out of place in the human resources department, and it's all because of her.
Vern, did you have a question before we go on?
Yes, I had to get myself off mute. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First off, Jamie always does a phenomenal job with presentations, and there's no doubt that she has a really good handle on her department. And I want to talk about this senior human resource generalist vacancy a little bit. It really points out to me a couple of issues that we really have to deal with. One, she's saying she's having trouble finding people in this because the salary is too low. We have a whole series of pay and equity situations throughout the county that, Jamie did a report on and really pointed out that some people in this county are seriously underpaid. We've also had the state's attorney talk about the number of people that she's lost to other counties because of the pay disparity in her department. Okay. The third point in this is the fact that this particular position has been open for some time, and the work is being performed by the extra people, by the people working harder. But unfortunately, I think what needs to be looked at is that we should say, don't hire anybody at this point in time until we finish this budget. So I would want to suggest that the committee seriously think about a direction of that nature. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tepe, thank you so much. And I just want to make sure I comment on that equity study. While we have some individuals that are grossly underpaid comparatively, we have several individuals that are really at the top end of that. And we can't mention one without the other. But if I can be so egregious, we have an individual within our employee ranks here that handles our VA administration and grossly, he is leading the pack, in my opinion. His performance is exceptional. The department is beyond belief, and he isn't just a little underpaid on that equity chart. He is massively. And if I can advocate for anybody, that would be the individual. Madam Chair?
Thank you, and excuse me, Anita, I just want to clarify, that has been addressed already by the state of Illinois, and they are their own taxing body now, the Veterans Association. So I'm sure that he will be able to, through working with his board, to be able to adequately increase his compensation without the approval of the Kane County Board.
Madam Chair, I thank you. I totally forgot about that. I thank you for that reminder.
We can relieve that, and thank gosh for that
Yep.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. Anita?
So I'm sorry, are these hourly positions or salary?
They are all salaried position, and all of these people are working extra hours to accommodate this vacancy. And if you do not let us rehire it, I firmly believe I will lose some of them. That they need the relief from this. Christine Miller in particular has been trying to run all of our benefits and process some of our workers' compensation and manage a lot of our insurance claims, doing essentially a double duty so that I'm able to take care of some of these policy and other things that we really need to do. If we do not hire that position, we will absolutely be crippled in our ability to continue some of these initiatives that the board has asked for.
I just
Do
asked
you
if
have
it
do you
was
have more in
salary.
your
Oh, yeah, no, I was responding to Mr. Tepe's comment. I'm sorry.
do you have more in your presentation?
Yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Mike, do you mind if she continues?
I think that for peace in her office, she has to continue looking. We ought to up the salary. If it's not enough, 55, whatever it takes. But the other people have to know you're trying to get help so that they don't have to work so hard. That's called
Yeah.
morale.
I don't think we can arbitrarily just up the salary right now when we're going through budget.
Well, we're gonna have to.
Do we have a job position for this? We have a
We-
job description?
We have a full job description
Yes.
for it. We have, and I'm only looking to have the salary or the budget adjusted for next year. I don't need anything extra for this year. The vacancy itself has more, there is significant extra salary in my department because the position has been vacant. So more than half the year has gone by. So that's $25,000 extra. So I don't need anything this year. I'm simply talking about the 23. And of course, I will still try to hire it as reasonable of a salary as possible. But I do, I'm requesting adjustment in that ceiling so that we can continue to find someone qualified.
Not gonna raise that.
I did include some bullet points and these are in your packet, so I'm not going to go ahead and read them all for you. But I did want to share the many things that this department does that I don't know that everybody is necessarily aware of. We do manage a lot of programs for the county. This is the list for benefits administration. I could come up with more, but I ran out of space. And the same will go through for our workforce management. These are all of the things that Human Resources does on behalf of workforce management that we are responsible for and that are essential for compliance. I also wanted to just, and I'll be brief, I know we're over time. We've had a lot of accomplishments in the last year and it has been a very transitive year for human resources for many reasons, but we've still managed to have a lot of accomplishments. Many of these are accomplishments that you're absolutely aware of because they have come through this committee, and this committee has gotten a lot of work done. I don't think we've finished under our hour, maybe once or twice in the last year. We also have a lot of goals for next year. Really looking at upping our risk management program. I think insurance liability is one of the areas that we most have ability to improve. And I think there's some additional reportability to this committee. I'd like to start reporting preventable versus unpreventable claims to this committee by department. I also, we have the whole grading and equity project. Like you said, having an established salary and a process involving grading, this of course for the county board departments, and a compensation policy. Every other county has a policy to govern compensation that puts proper controls in place, but still opens the possibility for merit-based raise opportunities that really do improve morale and retention. When you do not offer any merit opportunities for our departments, you're looking at a situation where employees see no benefit to achieving above and beyond when the person that they may witness that is only meeting expectations gets exactly the same reward as they do. So it's just a really important part of morale that I think that we need to work in with a policy. The wellness program, we already talked about that. We're putting a lot of time and effort into a really comprehensive wellness program that I think will positively impact our health claim rate over time. And there's more policies. Our handbook has more policies that need review, and we are working through them as we have time. This is the budget summary written as is. This does not include the increase in the salary for the vacant position that I am requesting. But if you look at the bottom line, the total expense budget in 2022 is 335,000 and change. And the total budget is 315,000 and change without it. So you can make that increase without increasing over our amended budget. We've made some changes in here. Again, I eliminated all of the staffing agency budget for our department. So that's somewhere where I took that out. I do not believe we will need that. We used to have that for extra work in purging records at the end of the year and having someone come in, and Nancy effectively takes care of that throughout the year. And manages it so there's not a large lump of work at the end of the year. So she's worked that into her regular workflow, eliminating the need for that temporary staff. I just did consultant work and I added a software component for compensation management so that if we do get a compensation management program, I put in $15,000 for that program. I don't know for sure if that's enough or not. I've only gotten very vague estimates from those companies as we do not have a policy to go with it yet. So what details I need in that program still remains to be seen, but I think that's a fair estimate for an annual fee for us for a software for that. And I did up supplies just a little bit to accommodate for an increase in costs. Are there any questions?
Well done.
No, I think you've done an excellent job, and I never want to come across as not being appreciative of everything you're doing, because you have brought this department to a new level. I think we've all seen that. The people that are working there, you guys are very efficient. You get back to people. You put in new programs. You've been innovative. So I do appreciate everything you're doing.
Vern, do you still have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Thank you again. I wanted to briefly add the comment that I really believe that Jamie and her department does a phenomenal job. So my comments about the open position really relate to using it as an example. And, just to add to it, I know in particular, the health department has quite a few open positions for nurses, and the salary is so low, they're unable to get anyone to even apply, let alone accept it. So these are issues that we don't have to look at. We have to look at in relationship to the entire county. And that's the kind of issue that I'm bringing up, not anything relevant to this particular budget. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jamie, just to recap this and close this, you were looking for $20,000 less than you were the year before. Am I reading that correctly?
Correct.
But you were suggesting that of that 20, you'd like to budget back 10,
Yes.
which will still be less than you were the year before.
Correct. It'll be an increase in my wage line, but it's a decrease in my non-payroll expenses.
Okay.
And then but then we'll be adding on to that our additional insurance expense.
Correct. It would
Yeah.
still be below.
Actually at 3%.
Correct. Right.
So
We're still below.
it'll almost be a wash. Yeah, I mean, it'll come out
No, we'll still be
almost
below.
exactly the 33.
No, we'll still be below.
It should still be below the $20,000 difference.
Mhm.
So it'll still be below the total. So it would be 10,000 in salary and you're looking at no change in benefits because the benefits are as far as health and dental is already budgeted for a role. So that's no change there. It would just be the IMRF, FICA, things like that, which should be maybe $1,200 on top of that 10.
You caught that you missed.
Yes,
Okay, got
I
it.
did.
Got it. Okay. All right. Anita, could we have a motion to place reports on file?
Yes, I would love to place reports on file.
Mr. Kenyon seconds.
Yes.
Is that an all in favor or roll call?
Roll call.
Go ahead.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Lewis,
Yes,
Sturgis.
Yes. No need for executive session.
I want a motion to adjourn.
It's all yours.
Davis, second.
Okay. Make yourself happy.